Good evening. Do you believe in ghosts?
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. In the name of God. You're off.
A flash of steel. An unearthly shriek. An icy breath. A knock at the door.
What you're about to see may shock you. It may frighten you more than you've ever been frightened before. Don't worry. It's only a maddening, horrifying nightmare. Or is it?
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sleazoids, the podcast where we go down the rabbit hole of 20th century genre fare from the most influential canon classics to the trashiest exploitation films we can get our hands on, and invite you to tag along in helping us create a canon of sleaze. Each week is a double feature grindhouse style where we discuss two films loosely related by subject, genre, actor, filmmaker, or franchise. And at the end of each episode, along with our honorary Sleazoids, which you can become by subscribing on Patreon.
Next week, we are going classic Gothic monster mode, so join the sleaze.
That's right. We decide on all the official ratings for every film that we cover. And Patreon subscribers also get an on-air shout-out and 2 bonus episodes every single month, which I just found out we have done over 200 of at this point.
Damn.
Now.
Wow.
And we have been doing for 8 years, and we're still going. Can't believe it. So if you haven't made the jump yet, patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast. And we also have the bonus transmission series over there where we talk about new release genre films as well, which we have over 60 of at this point. And we had a lot of people sign up actually for our one battle after another discussion. As soon as we said it was a 90-minute discussion, so that's what's going to explain the amount of names I'm going to have to shout out here today. We had John Rando sign up. We had Seth444. We had Vincent from Collateral make his return.
So glad to have you back.
Yep. Amon Villainy, Jack Fitzsimmons, Owen Beecher, Tyler Donahue, Houdini Blues, LP Gertner, Uberland Gizbar, Mason Domini, Sherry Bobbins, Ethan Hunt, who actually Ethan Hunt, motherfuckers, signed up for an entire year of the show. So if you at the annual show, you get a little bit of a monthly discounted rate if you get a whole year of the show in advance. So Ethan did that. Happy to have you, man.
Thanks for
Alex
saving the world.
That's right. Alex Menzia signed up. Aaron Crabtree, Snacks. Trevor McKinley, or Trey McKinley, actually also did at the annual tier. Agent Deckard, too. A lot of people at the annual tier. Michael Lane,
High
Thomas,
names here. High profile.
Gian LaFou, Sela, Bill Weber, Harry Likes Batman, Austin Simpson, G-Funk, and then last but not least, we had Robbie Jeffrey and Christian Childress both sign up at the $10 a month tier and are going to be joining us for the monthly virtual screenings that we try to do on the last Thursday of the month. It's a live stream alongside Jamie and I, where we watch a movie usually for the first time with you guys. And huge notification for this month, October and Spooktober is always when we do 2 screenings. We also do a free one. So what we're going to do is on Wednesday, October 29th, we're going to do the free screening at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be watching the movie Death Spa, which Jamie and I, believe it or not, have not seen, and I've heard is a crazy 80s aerobic slasher movie, essentially.
Love that.
And so we're going to be watching. That's going to be free for anyone who wants to come, any free listener, any paid listener, whoever. And then after that, at 10 o'clock, if you want to have the double feature experience with us, we're going to be watching Tony Randall's Ticks from 1993, who is the director who did Hellraiser 2, and I am very interested. And the lead actress also from one of the Witchboard movies that we talked about. So,
all the stars.
Interesting combination, but that's going to be the October 29th double feature. Again, one of those is free, one of those is going to be for the $10 patrons for the later movie if you guys want to hang around with us. And so thanks to those 2 guys who are going to be joining us for that. But thanks for signing up on the Patreon. Hope you guys are enjoying the bonus episodes. We appreciate that support.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. That is the one plug for the week. The other plug, as always, is Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you are listening on either one of those platforms, give us a good old rating and review over there. It helps us climb the ranks and find new listeners. And the last plug is merch. And once again, we are talking about the brand new shirts and hats that we have available that we got ready for our screening of Twisted Issues that we did with Charles Prinion, designed by friend of the pod, Brandon Lim of Black Belt Cinema. If you are interested in the new shirt or the new hat, the link is in the description of this episode, as well as over at sleazoidspodcast.com. And I have heard, we've been having to say this for the last couple weeks now. We've had still, I believe, have the store shut down to U.S. customers due to tariffs, but I have heard this might be lifting very soon.
Awesome.
From Brandon, and when it opens back up, we will let you guys know. And you guys, because we have a lot of listeners in the United States, and honestly, a lot of our shirts that we sent in the first batch before we had to do a reprint was to a lot of you guys, and we were lucky we got a lot out before the tariffs hit.
Yeah.
But we have a feeling we are going to be exempted from them shortly, and you guys are going to have your Canadian-made goods
the dad
coming
hats.
down. That's right, the dad hats and the blowout themed shirt that has a bunch of our favorite 80s movies we've talked about on the show. Again, designed by Brandon, who is incredible. So again, link is in the description as if you're outside the United States, and check it out soon, and hopefully only a week or two's time, and the US customers should be able to get it as well. And that is it for the intro. Welcome back to another week. As always, I am your host, Josh Lewis, and joining me also, as always, my co-host,
Jamie Miller. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome. I believe 2 weeks ago would have been the last time you folks over here on the main feed would have heard from us, where we would have been kicking off the spooky season with special returning guest, horror writer Mike Thorne, who made his return to the show to talk about the two first Stephen King books he ever read as a child, and that had very faithful adaptations, in his opinion, in comparison to some other people who adapted King. We talked about Mary Lambert's Pet Sematary from 1989, which is an incredibly playful and colorful and yet still pretty effectively upsetting movie. Lots of children and pet violence obviously going on there. And we paired it, though, with Lawrence Kasdan's somehow straight-faced but also insane adaptation of Dreamcatcher from 2003, which was just a $68 million adaptation of Stephen King having a painkiller-induced fever dream. It was one of the most insane movies we've talked about on this show.
Yeah, it has just like unbelievably bizarre body horror, but at the same time, just incredibly silly slapstick comedy while it's all happening, but it's still kind of framed in a very serious tone. It's one of the strangest things I've ever seen. And Pet Sematary, I've loved since I was a kid. It's always kind of scared me. And the tonal changes and almost trolling amount of trucks that fly by, foreshadowing everything, is pretty wild and funny when you think about it too.
Yeah, so we haven't heard that episode. Again, that was 2 weeks ago over on the main feed with Mike, who knows a lot about Stephen King. So it's worth going back and listening to that. But then last week over on the bonus feed, we did what we try to do annually, which was have one episode dedicated to the Italian horror legends that, got us obsessed with this kind of filmmaking on our show. So we went back to two of the classics. We went to Deep Red from 1975, which was celebrating its 50th anniversary, obviously by Dario Argento. And we paired it with Lucio Fulci's The Psychic from 1977, because we felt both of these were very much in the Gothic murder mystery sort of giallo realm, but both films were also hybrids of and kind of test runs for the more surreal and supernatural horror that both of those directors were about to go in come, Suspiria and The Beyond, which were about to be hitting fairly quickly after those movies came out.
Yeah, both really beautiful looking films too. Like the city photography in Deep Red is really, really great. And honestly, with Psychic, there's kind of that doomed quality with like Fate, which kind of connects to one of the movies today. Segue.
Italian horror filmmakers, there were a couple subjects they definitely liked.
Yeah,
they loved tearing bodies, and they loved
cannibalism.
Cannibalism.
We didn't, I guess, get there
Absolutely.
last week, but still.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Wow. It was a precursor to it. It set us up for this week's episode, which in his annual returning spot, we have friend of the show. You might have heard him a little bit already coming back in, but he's an incredible horror illustrator and creature designer and writer, someone who did the art for this show. So even if you don't know him, you have seen his work before, and you can find his work on his website and on Instagram. And also he's written some spooky middle school scholastic horror books called Scare Waves, and also Scare Waves 2 Beyond the Grave, which you should be checking out and buying. They are excellent. That guest is Trevor Henderson. Trevor, welcome back, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me back. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Every time, and we always think of you in the spooky season because we're always like we're planning it out, and we're like, we wonder if Trevor's got anything we've never seen before, which he always does, that he would want to recommend to us. It's honestly just a great excuse for when October rolls around for us personally to be like, Trevor, tell us 2 movies we should watch this month. Even if we weren't recording a show, I feel like we'd be coming to you and being like, tell us 2 movies we should watch this month.
Absolutely.
Recommending horror movies is my favorite thing in the world, possibly. So I will always be there for that.
You have seen so many of them. You have an encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff practically. So what 2 films have you brought with you this week, and why did you pair these 2 in particular together?
So the 2 films I brought were the Italian horror film Anthropophagus, and the weird
Anthropophagus. Thank you. I was trying to figure out how to say this so many times.
The American title is The Grim Reaper because it's just immediately easier to say. But yeah,
it's easier, yeah.
Anthropophagus. And I paired that with, I actually had to think for a bit what to pair that with. I paired it with this dreamy early 80s slasher called The Slayer, an American film. And the connecting tissue initially was that they're both films that are ostensibly lauded as slasher films, which they are, but for me the main draw in both of these features is not the gore or the kills, even though there are great kills and great gore in both. It's this like pervading atmosphere, especially putting place, like locale, over everything else. Character, character, especially writing. It's all about being kind of immersed in these decrepit, like doom-slathered, rotten locations for an hour and a half. Especially Anthropophagus, which is just, if there was any movie that felt covered in cobwebs and dust and maggots, it's Anthropophagus. And I'll talk about both of them, but I just love the environment, and I love how the environment extends even above like the villains or the characters, the writing, or anything else to drape the films in these atmospheres of like corruption and rot and doom and filth. Both of them. And I think that's the connection, despite them being made, in different, countries of origins and almost completely separate.
Yeah, no, I was surprised at how connected they ended up being, especially because, both of these films are gory enough that they were both considered video nasties, and they were both banned. Both films definitely spend a lot of time with characters stranded on an island together in a way where there will be some viewers who I think find that slow, but there will be other people who will be like, oh, there were stretches of both these movies where I was like, if Antonioni ever was like, I'm going to make a video nasty gore film, this is probably what it would be like, because half the movie is characters walking around like some sort of travelogue kind of location, just kind of feeling that something nasty is coming and something nasty coming. And so the 2 films were definitely, I think, connected by that. Yeah,
they both also have kind of like a shadowy figure that's looming over them and lurking and watching as it goes out, both in different contexts, I suppose, but... they have very similar feelings and atmospheres, mansions and cobwebs, essentially.
Yeah, and it is like, most of both of those features are people walking around slowly through an environment while, like, the soundtrack bleeps and bloops in a very pleasing way. And it's just cozy to me. Like, they're both disgusting. Well, one more so than the other. Anthropophagus is absolutely disgusting. But like just being in this environment feels like so autumnal in a way that is not like very outright, and just very like weirdly comforting for like being such gross, weird, slow movies. Some would say boring on both counts, but I say that if you're
Relaxing.
there for where they're relaxing and it's almost like like a decrepit ASMR video. Both of them.
Until someone starts munching on their own intestines, and then you're kind of like, okay, maybe I'm a little less relaxed, more unsettled.
I checked this time too, and the villain doesn't actually appear in any way, shape, or form on screen in Anthropophagus until like I think 57 minutes into an hour-and-a-half movie.
It's kind of crazy.
It's great, and it works for me because the villain isn't even like the villain. The villain in Anthropophagus is just like the island that they're on. It becomes like its own like malevolent character.
It's like a curse kind of thing. There is a lot I think that you can kind of even build within your own mind with the atmosphere as they like slowly draw it out. So looking forward to it.
But I'm excited to jump into it here. Let's get down to this double feature here, and we're going to kick things off. We're going to go chronologically here. We're going to start with Anthropophagus or Anthropophagus.
How do you say it again, Trevor?
One more time, Trevor.
I could be saying it completely wrong, and I'm sorry.
You sounded like it might have been right. We don't know.
You sounded right, and I hadn't thought to say it the way that you said it. So try one more time for us.
I pronounce it Anthropophagus. I don't know.
That sounds so much more right than anything that I've said.
When we hit rating round, I'm just going to go with the Grim Reaper. Thank you.
Just call it the Grim Reaper. I'm sure that in the comments there'll be a million people saying like it's that. You sound like an asshole. You're pronouncing it wrong.
Well, I'm going to go all in, and I'm going to say we are going to kick things off with Anthropophagus. I already can't fucking say it.
We're going to go off with the Beast, the Savage Island, and the Grim Reaper.
The Savage Island, the Beast. Thank you, everyone. Let's do it. Okay.
One, he tracks them down. One by one, they disappear. One by one, they come face to face with the ultimate terror. And now, he's coming for you. The Grim Reaper.
All right, we are here, and we are talking Anthropophagus. Fuck it, I don't fucking know. The Beast, the Savage Island, the Grim Reaper are all the AKAs for this, because obviously this is an Italian horror film with lots of alternate international titles. This is the 1980 Italian cannibal horror film written and directed by Joe D'Amato, co-written by George Eastman. And starring Tisa Farrow, Savira Vallone, and Serena Grandi as a group of tourists who take a boat vacation to a remote and deserted island where they realize the population has disappeared and they are being stalked and attacked by some sort of cannibal killer played by George Eastman, which they don't discover for quite a while of the movie. But this is actually somehow the first time on this show talking about the prolific Italian exploitation film director Joe D'Amato, whose 200 movie filmography from the early 70s to late 90s could probably sustain a full year of this show if we wanted. And
we'll never run out.
For anyone unfamiliar, he was an electrician turned photographer turned cinematographer turned director who got his foot in the door the same way many Italian horror directors did, making westerns, giallos, war films, sex comedies, sword and sandal films, adventure, fantasy, everything. Eventually finding his first really key niche in the world of adult films, where he became a regular director of the infamous softcore franchise Black Emanuelle with Laura Gemser, who became a regular staple of his films, and definitely finding his most popularity during the horror and cannibal film trend in Italian genre filmmaking in the late 70s and early 80s with movies like Beyond Darkness, Absurd, a few movies that appear to sort of merge these two genres together. Porno Holocaust is the name of one of his movies, Erotic Nights of the Living Dead. And actually, he even managed to incorporate one of the Emanuelle movies with this stuff, Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals, which is like Emanuelle the porn star gets lost on a cannibal island. Like, it's
holy shit.
This is, he had a very specific niche that he found. He eventually in the 80s would also become sort of like one of those post Conan, Mad Max, like fantasy and post-apocalyptic sort of action exploitation filmmakers.
Yeah,
and then in the 90s,
like a tour, it seems like maybe a side thing for Conan.
Yeah, he did like a number of those, but then by the 90s, if you look it up, he just became a full-on hardcore porn director until his career ended, until he died, basically.
Gotcha.
So we are square in the middle at sort of like the peak of his career here, where he was in the middle of a run of cannibal horror movies where he was essentially living in the Caribbean and on various Greek islands and just shooting porn and horror films with pals on pretty meager budgets. And he had started becoming a producer of his own movies so that he could have more control over them. And this is the first movie he made after starting his production company. And so this was what he wanted to make through and through. And one of those pals was the equally prolific Italian B-movie actor and screenwriter, George Eastman, who was a regular heavy in a lot of sort of spaghetti westerns and action films. But for us, most famously, actually co-wrote the great Italian 80s slasher Stage Fright by Michel Soave.
Awesome.
And he's actually even the performer underneath the owl mask chopping people up with the mask, because the dude was a 6'9" fucking giant man. And so that was why he was a heavy, and that's why he was like, he's the bad guy in a western, he's this. I mean, apparently he's also the slasher villain in Absurd. He just liked being this like hulking, stalking kind of character. Apparently in the action movies, he's dressed up to be a lot more handsome. He's a fairly good looking guy. In this movie, they were like, how do we make him as menacing and disgusting and kind of ugly as possible? And apparently he's actually not a fan of this particular one that he wrote and worked on anymore, but he is a very imposing figure when he does show up in the movie.
Yeah, and that like his reveal is very cool too. Just it's very simple, but I think they do such a good job on the makeup, and he just kind of exaggerates his facial expressions so much that it really does pay off.
They put like plaster on his forehead to make him look like he's balding.
Yeah.
He's got a big crackly like dome forehead kind of thing. But yeah, when you his first shot, like in the movie, is like emerging during a thunderstorm, like behind a door, and they like shoot him right from the floor with this huge shadow behind him, lit by like lightning. It's very effective, and he looks like he's 12 feet tall in it.
Oftentimes they do like a low camera angle so that they can make him even taller looking, which is a good effect. Honestly, it's simple but really effective.
I didn't like the makeup on the killer in this movie for the longest time, but it's really grown on me. It's pretty like they literally just put a prosthetic weird forehead on him, but he looks so like flaky and gross and like wet and dusty at the same time somehow. It's pretty gross. It's pretty good.
Yeah, he's the guy you wouldn't ask to like share the skincare routine. When you first see him.
No,
he kind of looks like that guy. You ever seen it's Harold and Kumar where they go to the, like do with the overalls or whatever? He honestly kind of looks like that guy.
But what's funny about this movie, though, is as Trevor kind of already highlighted, he does not show up until nearly an hour of this movie, and there is a lot in the movie that suggests that something is going wrong before he even kind of arrives. I mean, obviously you have a sort of an opening prologue set on the sort of where, you know, you have this sort of Greek island tourist sort of travelogue imagery and tone to kind of kick off the movie, building to this sort of young, attractive German couple walking around these beautiful locales, speaking German with no subtitles. Apparently, I found multiple copies of the film to see if there was anyone who had translated what they're saying, and there was no one. So I was like, okay, this is just an artistic decision. You're not supposed to know what the German couple is saying. They're just walking on a beach. There's a cute dog, and basically you get to see this Italian filmmaker do his version of like the opening of Jaws, where it's just the woman goes swimming. There's a handheld sort of point of view camera, you know, sort of shooting underneath up the water. And it attacks her. And then it's slowly emerging from the water, walking towards the German man on the beach and plunging a butcher knife into his forehead, because that is the Italian touch, including the great reflection image of like his screaming face, like in the knife and stuff like that.
It's just good for style points and to set the tone. You're like, this is going to be gory, it's going to be bloody, here we go.
They want to give you that up front because they know how long they're going to make you wait for more.
And to be honest, like even before we get to that point, they do kind of set it up with how long they just show them walking through the beach with the dog through the city. So it is kind of like we are setting you up for both versions of what we're going to show you in this film. Yeah,
I did appreciate that the dog didn't get murdered. He's gone.
He's done.
He sees the like George Eastman crawling out of the water and just is
the one character in the movie that gets to just like live in La Ventura is the dog. Everyone else is in a splatter movie.
I also really like the implication right from the very start of this movie that he just like came out of the water. Like he just came right from out of the bottom of the sea or whatever. It's really weird.
He does have a very like supernatural vibe to him as the movie goes on, just because it feels like, how could he have survived at this point in this place and everything? So and he's such like an unstoppable machine at a certain point. So it does feel kind of supernatural in that way. It's very cool.
Yeah, as soon as they get to the island and the mansion and everything, it feels like for me anyway, it feels like this is like the place's curse on this guy over. It feels like it's like a tainted kind of thing, supernatural.
Well,
thing.
definitely when you get the flashback and you find out that it was like because of the island and the survivalist, the harshness of nature is what turned him into what he turned into, right? And then you kind of that just keeps getting further and further sort of exacerbated, which becomes funny for me after a while, because it is like these tourists are, not that the tone of the movie is funny, but like the idea of like, it is just tourists getting their comeuppance, but it's one of those tourists getting their comeuppance by nature movies, but it's by turning them into cannibals that then attack each other is sort of like meant to be, I guess, the idea, because sort of the broad strokes here is that there's a fairly large group of tourists who are essentially heading, I think it's meant to be two different places, because there's two couples who are going somewhere, and it is Arnold and his pregnant wife Maggie, played by Serena Grandi, Danny, his girlfriend Carol, and Alan, all these characters, and they invite a stranger to tag along with them, who turns out to sort of be the lead of the movie, Julie, played by Tisa Farrow from Lucio Fulci's Zombie Flesh Eaters, and so she's clearly used to making gory Italian horror films on an island, but she runs into the group and is meeting friends on a different island than them, some English friends who I guess are going to the same place the German couple is going, and she basically just says, I need a quick drop off, like on the way, can we like carpool there, essentially? And so she kind of becomes part of this group of friends boat trip, and they do like a tarot card reading, and it's kind of a weird like sailing hangout film for just like a little bit, with a little bit of like, we're throwing in some details about the girl who's reading the tarot cards is like, that girl didn't have a future, and that was what so upset me like in this moment, and there's the Italian doomed quality coming into it, and it's when they arrive on that island. And I was surprised at how quickly they go, oh, this shit's fucked. They don't even, the pregnant woman twists her ankle and can't even get off the boat. So the vibes are already kind of fucked. And then as they sort of depart to drop sort of Julie off with her friends, they don't just drop her off and leave. They go, we're going to help her find her friends. And they don't find anyone. They find this like mysterious woman in black who writes like go away on her window. They find some like rotting half-eaten corpses lying around like a ghost town. And immediately you are like, it's as Trevor's been highlighting, like the mood and atmosphere of like, this is an evil place hits you before you even are introduced to actually what this force is that's going around killing people. There's also this kind of like subtle synth score that they do that has a very low and warm tone that I wouldn't explain it as like very tension filled, but it does have a very dark atmosphere, kind of just like a mystery unraveling a little bit for them, just as the corpses are falling through the doorways and all of that. It is fairly subtle though, I would say, compared to some of the stuff that I've seen from the 80s. I guess this is early 80s, it's like 1980 on the dot. But the Italians were on the forefront, man.
Oh yeah. That stuff gets pretty nuts with the Italians as the years go by. Absolutely.
It's very quickly that rotten, mummified, half-eaten corpses are like falling out of every possible nook and cranny. I mean, I think they're there for like 10, like the within an hour of being on this island, everything starts to go to hell, like you said. And like right away, what really gets you going is like, these Italian films, if you've seen enough of them, you know that they don't have a lot of rules with who's going to die and how they're going to die. So when you do see a pregnant woman right away, you're like, oh no, what are we going to do? And then having her be kind of the, like, I think one of the first, not, I guess, victims, because later on she's more kidnapped, but just having the idea of like the POV of her being dragged and you can only see her legs in the sand and stuff. She's
definitely the first one who's most like physically scared, because like they run back to the boat to find it like kind of like already taking off. And Maggie, who's the pregnant woman who twists her ankle at one point, like looks in a bucket, and like the sailor's head who had been like actually boating them there, his head is literally in the bucket, having been torn off by the cannibal. And yeah, there's a point of view shot of her being dragged into the eventual catacombs that we'll talk about, which is one of the creepier places that we see in the film. So she's the one who's actually seeing the monster movie portion of this, or the slasher movie part of the movie first, whereas everyone else was kind of going, this is just like an evil vibe island, you know. and like quite literally, the one woman is like, we should have never come here. I literally sense like vibrations in this island, and I don't know what it is. And you know, the first instances we start to get of the group of characters who are otherwise hanging out in like a tourist vacation travelogue movie is that sort of stormy candlelit sequence of Julie and Danny walking around the sort of cobwebby sort of villa, him sneaking up behind her holding like a butcher's knife, which is a very funny detail because she immediately turns and goes, there's a butcher's knife, and he's just like, it's just me, I'm just walking around with a knife, I heard something. And you get that also the jump scare of the adorable kitten being thrown across the piano like fake out.
Yeah. And I will say those moves, because they are taking their time a lot, kind of like there is quite a few shots of, you know, just going around every corner with the candle and everything. So when something does happen, like a butcher's knife or a cleaver kind of rises up behind somebody, you do get the
woman emerges from a barrel covered in blood, just slashing at them, and they're like, who the fuck is this lady?
Yeah, they just have like a Carrie figure basically coming out and like slashing. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
and that's a more exciting one that comes too, and it comes after like 3 almost fake out scares, so it is pretty effective.
I think that there's that sequence, and there's at least 1 or 2 other ones that are just slow motion with her like screaming and flailing in a what looks like to be an entire giant bucket of blood. There's another moment that does the slow motion reveal of like something really interesting, but I forget what it is. But it is really effective, like you said, after it comes from just a lot of really like slow atmospheric, like exploring a mansion, Gothic trope stuff. I love that it kind of has a lot of like the tropes of the Gothic, like secret passages and candelabra, the tomb underneath, like the reveal of like what happened with the villain to make him that way feels very like Gothic literature almost.
Yeah, it's very tragic. And yeah.
But interpreted through like, you know, this like Italian gut muncher, so you get all the gore and all the extra stuff. Feels like the two things put together really well.
Yeah, I like also that the first one of the, I mean, it's not the first, I suppose, but it's one of the first like big moments of violence with the actual tour group is somebody that doesn't end up being the killer. And it just kind of sets this tone of like,
it's another fake out, because the girl ends up being like a blind daughter of the friends that Julie was trying to meet, named Henrietta, and she literally just says that she's been hiding in the basement for days, calling out for her parents who never came, and the only thing that she could tell was with them was what she describes as a madman who smelled of blood. And I do really like the idea of like her sense of smell is what leads her to be like, I know where this guy is, and no one like believes her about it at first, even though it results in an incredibly, I don't know, again, meant to be funny or not moment where the character of Danny is just so funny, because he comes in with the butcher's knife and scares the one girl. The other time he hears of the blind girl sort of breathing really heavily at night and kind of squirming and, you know, not quite screaming, but like really upset enough that he can hear her from the next room. So he comes into her room and sees that she's like panting and tremoring, and he has his lantern and he goes, there's nothing in here. Like, you're fine. You know, what are you fucking doing? And he closes the door behind him to be like, you know, whatever, stop, like, grow up, blind girl. And literally as he closes the door, that is the reveal of George Eastman as that sort of half zombified, you know, sort of weird plaster foreheaded Jason or whatever, essentially just wide eyed, like ready to pounce, you know, moment. And that's one of a movie, like a moment that really did that Italian number of like going from being incredibly weird and funny to actually being unsettling very quickly, because the second you're like, oh, she's alone in that room with that guy, like what is about to go down here? And it is very quickly that she starts screaming louder and the guy has to come back in. And the first bit of like really, really gnarly violence is him just taking a big old bite out of Danny's throat. And the gore effects, I have to say, of him just like yanking his throat out with his bare teeth is really nasty. And it's by this guy, Pietro Tenolio, who is once again the guy who did Stage Fright as well, so he did all the gore there. He also did the makeup for Castle Freak for Stuart Gordon, which feels pretty notable. And also most randomly, and I love this, a movie called The Skin by Liliana Cavini, which for listeners of this show has one of the most memorably gross and upsetting endings to any film we've ever covered on this show that I won't spoil because it's an art house like World War II like liberation drama, so you might not expect it. And so that effect that happens at the end of that movie was by this guy, and I went, okay, that makes a lot of sense because he loves the texture of just skin and things bursting and the blood coming and stretching, and it's gross.
Well, that's the thing I found about like almost the two differences in violence with this film and then the next film. The next film gets almost more slasher creative a little bit with what they do. With this one, it's and by no means is that an insult to this one, because it just goes with like very grounded real violence of just throats being ripped out and hair being pulled to the point where their scalp is ripping and blood is dripping down, and like it's just so much more grounded in reality.
This one is plainly more ugly and unpleasant than even other slasher films we watch where you kind of have fun.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's he's not trying to be creative with it. He really just starts eating people and ripping them into shreds. There's nothing like, humorous at all. It's just really violent. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a counterpoint to the vibe of their trip they're trying to briefly maintain.
Absolutely.
Where they're just like, we're going to this beautiful island, and then all of a sudden they're running through forests and Gothic cemeteries, and
and just before that they were doing that, like they almost had there's like a classic almost trio of love going on between Julie, Dan, and Carol, I think, and Julie and Carol are kind of getting mad at each other or something like that with it. Again, the character stuff is a little bit thin. They're not really focused too hard on it as the movie goes on, but they, there's little dabbles of it, I would say.
Most of the character work is Dan's a shithead.
Yeah. Until his throat is ripped out, I guess.
His throat is ripped out first.
So.
Yeah, that's a super good point that, like, I think if they went with the slightly more creative, like, maybe a little more gimmicky deaths, like you kind of see in slasher movies, it would be a disservice to the unrelentingly miserable, like, disgusting atmosphere that drenches this entire movie. It just being he literally just tears big gross chunks out of people and then they just die while the synth plays is like the only way this could have been done. I don't know if it's on purpose. It all just lined up perfectly to make this weird vision of doom.
Yeah, it does feel purposeful just because like he could have easily, I'm sure he, in some of these movies that we haven't seen from D'Amato, like he has more creative slasher kills or something like that in some of his horror movies, I would assume. Maybe I'm wrong, but this one just felt like very purposefully grounded in like this guy's just rage, his hands and his teeth. That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and just making you feel uncomfortable and unpleasant feels like the, sort of the way that these sequences are designed. Like when you watch this like 6'9" balding man just bare teeth rip a man's throat out, you're kind of like, that's just, I kind of might need to look away from that. And when you start getting into the, the further details of it, like even some of the violence that's not him, one of the most upsetting moments in the movie, I thought, is when we find out that it turns out this man, his name is Klaus Wortman, and he's sort of a wealthy patriarch whose mansion they wander into, and they start kind of, in the Gothic sense, kind of discovering some of the details of this history of this island and of this man. And the story is he apparently died alongside his wife and child in a shipwreck. And the woman in black that we've been seeing throughout the film is his depressed sister, who, one of the most upsetting moments in the movie is she hangs herself in front of everyone. And it is done in this insane sort of wide angle lens, sort of low angle perspective shot of all the characters at the bottom of this mansion, watching her literally throw herself down like over a staircase balcony or handle,
and it's so massive
into the mansion lobby in front of them, and just feeling the like rope snap and her feet hold right there, and some of the blood shoot out, and it's just, again, there's nothing particularly, it's not an entertaining slasher. You're just like, that's just brutal.
It just feels tragic. And there's also like a scale to it because they're in this big mansion, and she does it from the very top story, and so it's just like there is something about it being like this 20-foot jump and rope that makes it feel definitely more gothic, but also just kind of epic in scale in that specific moment for some reason. It feels very significant in the movie.
Oh, absolutely. I think over like out of all the horror movies I can think of, I think this one has like this sense of place over like every other quality, where like it has this setting that they end up on this island with this mansion, but you go through the entire mansion, it feels like you can really place it out in your head. Like the tunnels, you have the catacombs underneath the mansion. Like it takes you all the way through this really like gross Gothic location, and that's like,
that was where the slowness started to play better for me, because I would say the first 45 minutes or so I was feeling the pace a bit, and I was feeling some of the slowness, but when they hit that mansion and they start going through those locations, that was when I went, oh, I could have watched more of like that guy with the torch going through the catacomb and being like, finding the progressively more rotted corpses. Like he starts at skeletal, then he starts to find ones that have like more and more sort of like flesh or organs on them, until he gets his way all the way to his wife. And I went, that is a fantastic setup of a guy getting close, like going from death to life in like a single stretch of like walking a hall for like 3 minutes, and it is just this underground subterranean, just like cobwebs and shadows, and like that to me was where the thickness of the atmosphere started to make sense for the pacing of a sequence like that. And the fact that also the climax of that sequence obviously is, he finds some of the corpses feasted on rats, he finds his wife, and the guy eventually approaches the both of them. And this was maybe my favorite detail in the whole movie, is he points a knife at him and is basically defending his pregnant wife and going like, you can't do this, like I'm gonna have this child, like, this is such an important thing. And that moment triggers a flashback of him on the shipwreck with his wife and son, where it turned out the details of it was that the son basically died of exposure or starvation before the parents did, and he suggests to the wife that they eat their child because he says he's meat now. And the wife is so horrified by his statement that she fights back, obviously, and he stabs her to death and presumably ate his wife and child. And to have that flashback awake in the moment of a husband protecting his wife and child holding a knife, I was like, that's actually really well thought out moment to wait to make that reveal. And then when it comes back around and he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to stab you to death and I'm going to rip your unborn baby out of your wife and eat it in front of you, which is obviously the most infamous part of this movie that got it single-handedly put on the video nasties list. And either way, that stretch of the movie, however long it is, 5 to 10 minutes, when he goes into the catacombs, triggers this emotional flashback for the cannibal, and then feels the full brutal comeuppance of doing that. I was like, that is easily my favorite stretch of the movie.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. And just like, again, there isn't a lot that you could go beyond like his insanity of what he did to his family with the character Klaus, but that moment does feel so specific, like you said, having the flashback, then that specific death, as if he's just saying like, well, you're not getting your family either, and ripping away from him. It doesn't outright say it, but it's just very well edited in that sense. And I think aren't they also using, like, I was reading on the wiki that it was like the Acropolis of Athens for this scene. I think they're using like the ancient ruins in Greece.
Oh shit! They could have. Really cool. They definitely put their stamp on that location.
Definitely. That's why I want to go there, so I can see that specific spot.
Yeah, I want to see the part where George Eastman like feasted on like a rabbit's stomach or something, or whatever it is that he eats.
It was a skinned rabbit, I believe.
Like covered in blood or something like that.
Yeah, I remember I read the Wikipedia, and Joe D'Amato was quoted as saying like, I wanted that sequence to go on for like another like like 3 minutes or something, but they wouldn't let me. So it's actually pretty brief in the movie.
He wanted to kind of go like porn mode with just the fetishism of the violence for his movie.
Well, there's like right before that happens, there's like a what feels like 2-minute long sequence of just like rats gnawing on a corpse.
Right.
It's like lovingly shot, like
slow cinema pioneer Joe D'Amato.
That sequence is amazing. Anything in the catacombs is so moody and like just gothic and wonderful. Like
the flashback too in the boat when he like does it.
Yeah.
They end it with this like giant slow-mo scream of his agony and everything. It just feels so big in scale. It honestly, like as the movie goes and just picks up and hits that mansion and then just starts getting darker and darker and more violent, I feel like that's where you start to sink into it, whether or not that first 45 minutes of like either however you interpret it, boring or relaxing, works for you. I do think that this last 45 minutes will
I'd be surprised if the final even half hour of the movie doesn't just get anyone who likes an Italian horror film or a cannibal film or a Gothic horror film. Like if you like any of that stuff, it's kind of giving you like some
elements
good
basics,
of that. And it does, the slowness that it's doing is making a dread inducing point. And it also does just pick up because the amount of characters who just start getting munched on and thrown into the meat grinder and all of this, it does, at a certain point, he literally is chasing some of the last characters around, like when he gets to Julie and Henrietta and he starts chasing them up the spiral staircase towards the attic, where he catches up to them. And at one point, they start sort of trying to like get in. They essentially climb down the ladder with a knife, like breathing really heavily, and he smashes his fist through the like wooden ceiling. Yanks the blind girl by her hair, and as he's pulling her through, the detail that got me is that he's like skinning her face off the broken wood while trying to like yank her through before just deciding he's gonna bite her neck too. But the detail of her face being peeled by getting yanked through was what disturbed me.
It's very gross.
And again, it's like it's just this really visceral, straightforward way of doing it. Just the pulling of the hair, the strength to lift somebody up just by that, all the scratching, and then before, like we've already seen the throat rip out, but now we have like all the visuals of her face being kind of messed up before he does it, and it really is quite the shot. I even think they use it on the poster for the Letterboxd, I believe.
Oh my god!
Because they're just like, this is pretty wild.
I didn't see that. Yeah, they used it as the cover photo. Yeah, that's right. I didn't actually notice that. Because the posters, I haven't mentioned it yet. One of my favorite posters ever. That was part of the reason I want when Trevor even told me what it was. I knew, my brain immediately knew what it was, even though I hadn't seen it. Because I was like, oh yeah, that's the movie where the guy's eating his own intestines on the cover. I wonder what the I've always wondered what the fuck that movie is.
You know what?
It turns out that that's kind of a spoiler image because it does.
It's the finale, baby.
Or you can look at it that way. It actually delivers what it promises you because, I mean, there's kind of a final sequence where he continues to chase Julie and she falls into sort of like this large concrete well, and she's kind of climbing out of it and he's, pulling up after her, and she ends up getting saved by Alan, who grabs this pickaxe and literally disembowels him with a pickaxe, and in an attempt to show that even he himself is like just meat, and that's what his existence is now. It's almost like to defiantly prove a point or something. He just like decides to eat his own guts right in front of them, and it is a pretty insane final image for the movie, those two, because it's either that or it's those two characters looking at that and being like, kind of like disturbed but a little impressed maybe, and a little like what the fuck, like I don't understand.
So now what?
he locks eyes with them. He's maintaining like this incredibly terrifying eye contact while he eats his own intestines in front of them, and then it just slams the credits after that. Like there's nothing else really you want to you're done.
Nothing left to be said there.
Nothing left to be said for that.
They did it. They got rid of the curse, but they feel probably pretty traumatized by it because no smiles around.
It's wild to me that is it really 45 minutes before they hit the mansion? It doesn't feel like that to me.
Maybe it is. I don't know, actually. Maybe it's like 30.
I'd have to look it up, but it might even be longer before they hit the mansion. I think it's about 45 minutes until George Eastman even shows up and is attacking them in the house.
Yeah, because like...
So they go to the mansion after that. It might even be like 50, 55 till they hit the mansion.
Because I agree that you definitely need to sink into the movie. Like the first 20 minutes or so, or whenever they're just kind of exploring the village or the
traveling.
Yeah, that's kind of whatever. But as soon as they're in, I don't know if it's the house or the mansion, or they're in that locale with the...
Oh yeah, they're definitely in the villa earlier where they're staying.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, because you still have all that, like with the decaying bodies coming out of the doorways and stuff like that. Which
as soon as they hit that, I'm locked in. As soon as you're walking down a hallway with a candelabra and there's lightning outside.
That section of the movie when they're in the villa is more like half an hour, 35 minutes kind of into the movie.
That's where I was. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's when Eastman shows up, it's about 55 minutes, and then it's about an hour when they hit the mansion where they see the woman hang herself.
That's right.
That for me, that moment of, because there is obviously stuff to enjoy, I think, before that.
Totally.
But the moment where that woman hangs herself and they're actually walking around like the Eastman mansion and then going into the catacombs, and that for me was the stretch where I was really, really locked into.
Yeah.
This movie, because if we're pivoting towards reductive rating round, I mean, this was a very solid, to honestly, if I rewatch this, maybe even like a higher 3. Like I was definitely, it took me a little bit to get into the sort of the pacing of a sort of tourist hangout movie, even though at a certain point I was like, this does feel like a European travelogue movie, which there's plenty of dramas of characters having marital problems on an island that I've enjoyed. So I can't say that this is particularly more quote unquote boring than that. I just think that maybe some of the character work might not hold up for some people for that kind of movie, but there's enough of the implicit mood of what's to come, especially if you've seen the poster for this movie and you can figure out you've seen the opening sequence, you've seen the pregnant woman step on a decapitated head in a bucket, you've seen a blind girl fucking screaming and talking about smelling blood. Like those details are all before you even meet the 6'9", balding, comb-over, plaster foreheaded giant George Eastman, who, for some reason wrote this movie, stars in it, thinks it's kind of a piece of shit, but everyone else, he's kind of like, it's funny, friend of the pod Willow McClay wrote about the movie, and she really likes it, but she said that she found an interview with him where he says, how do I explain the cult phenomenon? I guess someone sort of asked him about how this is like Joe D'Amato's one of his biggest movies, and he said, there are obviously a lot of weirdos out there, was his response.
Hell yeah,
I was
unite,
like,
baby.
right here on the show, man. Like, this is exactly that's who this movie's for, and I think if you are prepared for that, I think easily, you're someone who could sit through the first half an hour or whatever it is to start getting into the Gothic wandering around the dusty staircases and catacombs and cemeteries and the concrete well and the candlelight and cobwebs and all of that, and as soon as you get into that stuff, it does pay off with all gory, he's meat now disgustingness of just yanking out fetuses and munching on them and chowing down on intestines and biting throats out and scraping faces on wood. And the shocking gore makeup, I think, does hold up. It feels like an exact merging of, if you like the Italian Gothic horror of the 70s and you also like the cannibal gore fests that kind of came about in the 80s, this is like almost like the exact intersection of those two things, and it's clearly made by someone who was willing to make slow hangout movies, because he was someone who also made softcore porn and was like, beautiful women on beautiful locales was his other gig. And so that's something that you have to imagine that guy doing Fulci level disgustingness. And I don't know, there is something, I think, bizarre and miserable and unpleasant about how he films all of that stuff that I definitely took to. So this definitely got to high 3 territory for me, and I feel like despite how absolutely repulsive it is, I probably will come back to it, because that stretch of the guy walking through the catacombs, finding all those varying layers of decaying corpses, finding his wife, triggering that flashback, and then just watching his own unborn child be eaten in front of him. And the fact that D'Amato wanted to film that for 3 minutes straight or whatever, like,
freak.
God,
Yeah.
it's a freakish movie. So, and we appreciate that here. So
Absolutely.
yeah, solid for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every time I watch it, it goes up like another rating or so. This is like the third or fourth.
Yeah, I saw that the first
Yeah.
time you watched it. I feel like you were kind of in a similar boat to us, and then
Yeah.
you rewatched it today, and I was like, oh, he liked it even more. So maybe I'll have that experience
And there
too.
were
I'm
a couple
excited.
like not logged on Letterboxd too, where every time I like it, I just the things that I like about it get better, and the things I don't like about it just diminish until I don't care about any of the other. I don't care that the characters are weak or that the writing is whatever. The drama that's like the early part of the film is inconsequential. Really, it's just like that atmosphere and those sets and just like how disgusting it is. I can't get enough of it. It's great.
Did you end up foring it?
I think I even gave it a 4.5 this time.
Awesome.
Either 4 or 4.5.
go.
I think it was a 4.5.
Yeah, I'm at
love
I myself, I'm at the 3 as well. I did struggle with it a little bit just because the first, it is slow, and I kind of had to just find my footing.
Of course,
and then as it just builds, I think that's where I was getting on board. And once they kind of showed me how the violence would be, of course, you have the opening scene with the cleaver and the kind of Jaws thing and everything on the beach,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily show you exactly like if that's going to be the entirety of the film. And the fact that it is, I actually think is a good decision. And the more just grounded and real the violence feels, it's very interesting because he still has like a supernatural strength to him. So there's something there that feels bigger, but everything he's doing just feels possible. And that almost makes it more, just kind of skin crawling.
Yeah.
There's some slower stuff at the beginning, like them doing the shot of them walking on the pier. And it's just like a long pan before they finally get onto the boat and stuff like that. It just feels like it could be cut down by even just a couple, like 30 seconds at a time here and there with some of the shots. But honestly, once it gets going, I think it's great. I think Eastman is the star just as a like silent, very violent villain and killer. The cool Gothic
he was very
locations.
talented at it, clearly, just using his body. He's practically an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the cool Gothic locations, the mansion. That shot of the woman hanging herself with that giant rope and everything is pretty wild. So I think it's got a great atmosphere for sure. So 3 out of 5.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for, oh my God, Anthropophagus.
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 I think.
Anthropophagus.
Yeah, we say.
Let's fucking
yell
go.
at us. We'll get it right one
Say
of
it
these
10
days.
times, and I think you start getting it.
You'll summon Eastman if you say it 10 times.
Oh no!
Just gonna see him behind me.
There's a weird balding man with terrible skin in my room.
God.
But that's going to wrap it up for that one there. We're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about the Slayer. Stick around.
Is this a nightmare? Or is it the fears we all have when we're alone in the dark? And if it's only a nightmare, why is everybody dead? Prepare yourself, because you will never want to be alone again. Prepare yourself for the Slayer.
All right, we are back, and we are talking the Slayer, in this case also known as Nightmare Island. Actually, a fairly literal and accurate title on that one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
That's
It's on an island. There's a lot of nightmares. It is the 1982 American supernatural horror film, quasi slasher, written and directed by J.S. Cardone, co-written by William R. Ewing, and starring Sarah Kendall, Frederick Flynn, Carol Cottonbrook, and Alan McRae as a sort of pair of in-law couples who travel to and get stranded on an island and end up stalked and killed by some sort of murderous monster. Maybe the summary sounds a little familiar to you. It's We got two movies doing the same thing here, but different vibes. This is our first time talking about the Pasadena, California trash filmmaker J.S. Cardone, or known as Joseph Cardone, his full name. He would go on to direct the sci-fi horror movie Shadow Zone, I've heard of, and a vampire film called Forsaken, and also the direct-to-video sequel to Joel Schumacher's snuff film thriller 8mm. He made 8mm 2.
Let's go.
Very strange kind of low rent career that started with this directorial debut in 1982, The Slayer, a movie he wrote while apparently just being a liquor store clerk in LA, and managed to pitch to like the right producer who was looking to break into the horror exploitation market, this Bill Ewing guy, and the rest was history. They got to make a movie, and it was funny. I don't have the Arrow Blu-ray for this, so I wasn't able to watch apparently the pretty spectacular special features they have for this. A lot of information you can't find kind of elsewhere, but the few people I saw like who wrote about what the special features were kind of like, it's a very most special features are like people telling stories about crazy shit that happened, and they were like, every single person was like, yeah, this was a very pleasant shoot, everything happened the way it was supposed to. The guy just he made this one movie, and he had an idea, and it was kind of a slasher. The slashers were kind of a thing, and there you go. Now
no
we had it.
And, here.
Yep. No, everything was fine, and I was sort of impressed by some of the sort of crew of this one. They had is edited by Edward SLAYER, who is the guy who did Alice Sweet Alice. The score was by Robert Folk, one of his first movies he ever did, who would go on to score the entire Police Academy franchise for some reason.
Well, I was gonna even to start with this, the title card, I was gonna mention the orchestral music that actually is very like rich and full, and it's got a creepiness but a sadness, which does kind of go well with the tone of the movie. The one interview I could find with him,
he said that it was Pino Donaggio's work with Brian De Palma was what he was kind of aping at the time, because they wanted that, who was also doing like a Bernard Herrmann kind of thing too, right? So like they did want that like full eerie or classical kind of quality to the movie in terms of that. So they did that. They also had the production designer who would eventually production design Repo Man in like 2 years, and they had and makeup by Robert Short, who is a pretty legendary makeup and visual effects artist who did Beetlejuice. So I was like, kind of a crazy weird crew to do this kind of movie by this guy who really seemed to never get sort of much bigger than this movie, and definitely had a few interesting things to say about his own movie, because I went into this, and based on the poster, because it's like this shadowy monster figure in a fire, it's a video nasty slasher, so I feel like I had a different idea of what this movie actually was when I put it on, because it does feature gnarly kills by a monster going around killing people. It's mostly a mysterious force throughout the movie. You don't really see it. There are two big moments where you do see it, one at the beginning in a dream, one kind of at the end of the movie, and you could argue this plays the beats of a body count slasher. There are long stretches of it that were kind of indistinguishable from some of the things you might have seen in a Friday the 13th at a time, where like a character dies, it gets a gruesome kill, one character goes, shouts their name looking for them, ends up being stalked and killed in a very similar way. So like that, there's sections of this movie that have that quality. The rest of it, though, is a weirdly eerie and kind of tense, just like drama about these two couples, one of whom is named Kay, played by Sarah Kendall, who is this abstract surrealist painter who is essentially experiencing these sort of lifelong nightmares of what she is sort of vividly imagining to be her loved one's death. And I guess the main drama of the movie is, are these real? Is she actually having some sort of psychic dream sight? Is this a premonition? Is there a sort of doomed fatalism to all of this? Or is she a crazy lady? Obviously, the movie does make it, kind of clear, and it isn't just being cruel to this woman. It actually is taking her psychological experience fairly seriously. But it's also like the emotional fallout for the people around her, and will people believe her, and is it straining her career? Is it straining her marriage and her relationship with her siblings? And that is actually what the majority of this movie is, that otherwise got labeled a video nasty, which seems kind of insane to me. I'm like, this movie was banned for being like repulsive or disgusting, and I kind of watched it and I was like, no, this is a much much like slower, vibier film. Like the director in his interviews was like, I love Val Lewton and like Lovecraft, and like this was me like doing like a Carnival of Souls like kind of movie, even though I do have kills in it, you know?
Yeah. And he does have moments too where, you know, her psychological kind of state is getting worse, and it's kind of exposing some of the relationships too, because at first they're kind of listening to her, but even at the beginning it's very much like the husband going, no, I'm not going to listen. I think the best thing for you is actually to go on vacation and not listen to your instincts. And as the film goes on, that is happening pretty much over and over again, and she's got to convince people of what she believes to be true. And so yeah, I did find
I love that introduction to the husband, by the way, of like waking her up, and it's in that low angle perspective shot of him like looking extremely down at her, which is obviously kind of suggests something about the relationship, but I didn't realize until later in the movie is also very, very heavy foreshadowing for this guy is going to go up later to his death.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And I also really like just the very beginning, we were talking about the orchestral music, but there's this like ticking pendulum that's kind of happening as the title card is going by in the credits, and it's just one focus shot that kind of slowly focuses in when the woman appears. There are a lot of like really deliberate directing moves in this movie that I
and
thought
a
were
slimy bloody claw that grabs her by the neck, and that's what screams to you that this is a gothic horror nightmare. It's not real life, you know?
Right, exactly. But I like at like the very beginning, she's already set up that these dreams affect her on a very deep level, and this has been happening for a very long time. So it's not as if she's looking at them and going, oh, that was just a really, really bad nightmare. There is this feeling about wherever they're about to go, like she has a premonition, essentially.
Yeah.
Even though it's a crazy nightmare, like it's a monster, you know, so you wouldn't think that would be kind of in her head as anything realistic or anything like that, but she seems very, very focused on it.
Yeah, it's wild to me that this was a video nasty, because while I think there's like 3 kills in it, and they're really effectively done, I thought.
They are pretty wild when they happen.
They're really good, but the majority of this film is like you said, very vibes based, very portent of doom. It's definitely like, it feels like it was billed as like Friday the 13th or something, but it's closer to something like Let's Scare Jessica to Death. I don't think it touches that film. That's one of my favorite movies.
Or
but
even
I feel
Nightmare at a certain point.
Nightmare on Elm Street also,
Messiah of Evil was something I was thinking a little bit about as well. You know, like that's definitely more the range that this film is, you know, shooting for, even if it's maybe not achieving those highs, right?
Yeah, right. California Gothic, I guess, is what you would kind of...
I mean, it kind of does a disservice to the film, because I think that there are stretches of this that are quite... between the two, it depends on what you like. The Italian film, I think, is more crudely made, and, you know, and the dreamlike components of it are more in that sort of like uncanny, you know, kind of place. This is more competently made. Like this actually, in terms of the sort of performances and in terms of, you know, the cameras is actually put in some, you know, some very practical and creative kind of places. The murder sequences would be good in a Friday the 13th movie if you were to like, if this guy was to have made one of them. Like they're perfect. Like this is a very solid down the line kind of movie in that way. I do think there are some people who will find it slow, but I think you'll find it slow because of how it's been pitched to you. I think if you hear someone pitch it to you as comparing it more to Let's Scare Jessica to Death or Carnival of Souls, you'll be more prepared for what this movie is.
Absolutely, yeah. You should go into it with the kills as a fun bonus when they do pop up.
Yes.
To the real pleasure,
Yeah, and it has that same kind of circular doomed fate kind of feeling. And it has this thing like when they're on the plane going forward, I think it's the brother of Kay that says it. And he's just like, you're on vacation whether you like it or not. He's doing it like in jest and kind of joking, but there is this forceful nature to it that it's like, you're gonna have a good time with us and you can't listen to yourself. I do love that neither of the women want to go, like even because the other couple is her brother Eric and his sister-in-law Brooke, and she also doesn't want to go. She's like, you just want to go fishing like
like with your in-law, like and the two women are this is clearly a fellas trip. And when they take a private plane to the remote island, it's off the coast of Georgia, which they think is going to be sunny and warm, but they go during the fucking hurricane season. So, not realizing there's going to be a storm that's going to leave them stranded there and all of that.
And the power out, so we can go back to the candles.
Died when they're on that plane and the one woman shouts, "It's surrounded by water." She's like, "You're going on an island vacation."
Yeah, I think the husband or whoever quips like, "Yeah, most islands are."
yeah. And so like that's it, it's funny. There is more of like a mood of like domesticity under threat. It's kind of like a couples movie. It's an adult movie in that kind of way. I mean, there's one of my favorite sort of filmmaking things they do in the film, and it's during the credit sequence. There's one part where with Eric and Brooke, when they're introduced, he receives a phone call in the kitchen from David talking about sort of the plans for this trip, and the camera pans from the kitchen, and in what appears to be one take, or maybe like some stitching of two pans happening simultaneously, it goes over to Brooke in the shower, and it's like filled with steam, and it's just, there's something elegant about it. There's something that tells you about how these characters are connected in a way that the other characters are kind of separated from each other, and it was cluing me into that this was going to be more of a relationship film until suddenly it's not, and the vibes do begin to shift, because similarly to the last film, they definitely do spend a time doing some vacation hangout stuff. Like they get into the house and they're like admiring how well stocked it is and how furnished it is, and even though when they walked along the windy beach, they pass by a number of sort of dilapidated buildings, and it does feel like this deserted ghost town, which they just kind of throw away as, oh, we're here in the off season, that's all it is. And Kay is experiencing obviously the deja vu of some of these properties and locales, and the clock and the rundown movie theater, and these are things that she's painted and had dreams about and had visions of, and she's basically like, I paint what I see. Her husband throws back at her, no you don't, you paint what you dream. And I kind of wish the movie leaned into this a little bit harder, and the only reason I was thinking about it is because we just talked about Lucio Fulci's The Psychic last week, and what we were comparing that movie to was Don't Look Now, in terms of how much it plays up the psychological subjectivity of she has a vision, and now she's re-experiencing it and using like the visual construction of just like the power of what you can do with the camera and with editing, to have us like almost detective investigate the imagery that she's seeing, and really filling in this kind of like Final Destination prophecy is being achieved kind of quality. And that was something that this movie I think had an opportunity to do with how they use her visions, and she does literally experience that. I guess I kind of wish the filmmaking, maybe that would have been a way to make it a little bit more exciting, was to just get us kind of into that mode. But you could definitely see he wants to pull it back and definitely make this more like, what's the ambiance of like being on this island, with these people, that's definitely what he wanted.
And the violence when it does happen is incredibly blunt. Like that first one that they do where the guy's cleaning out the fish, which already has like the implication of violence, just gutting a fish here or there. Yeah. But like the shadow approaches, he's kind of making jokes a little bit, like being nervous. Like next thing I'll be seeing things that ain't there. and as soon as he like the
his
killer,
whole thing about needing a companion, and he's like, maybe a woman. He's like, actually, maybe a dog.
Maybe a dog. He's like, this guy's just looking for companionship in general. But yeah, he's like the POV of the killer absolutely smashing the dude's face with the paddle. Like it even does kind of like an indent and everything like that. Like it's very much going to show you the aftermath, the process of the death itself. Like it's and these ones, like we were talking about, compared to I won't even try to say it.
Anthropophagus.
The deaths are a lot more in that Friday the 13th realm, where they start very blunt, like just the paddle, but then they get to like fish hooking a guy and dragging him into the water, and when we get to the attic hatch, I think that one is just unbelievably
that one's
visceral.
gnarly. Yeah.
I mean, that's the kill of the movie,
Yeah.
like easily, right?
I think
Because
so.
it's on Julie's husband. It's definitely the most shocking and sort of elongated one because it happens right after they, get drunk and kind of hook up with each other, and she's starting to kind of give way, I think, to the idea that they're going to try and have fun in this cabin, even though it's a dark and stormy night. He kind of goes out into like a sort of rainy basement. He ends up, I couldn't figure out the full geography of this because I've never seen something like this before, but it appears like he goes into a cellar, and the cellar is so tall that it has an elevator in it. So and so that's what he actually goes up, because they refer to it as an elevator.
Yeah, they do
Every
say
character
that.
does.
Yeah.
But functionally, what it looks like is when you like pop out of like a cellar door, if you have like an underground sort of like basement or something like that. And so that's what he pops his head up through, and then the door is smashed on his neck. Similarly to the end of Anthropophagus. We're never gonna get it. Don't
The
worry
Grim
about
Reaper?
it.
The Grim
That's what it's
Reaper.
called.
The Grim
Yeah, that's
Reaper,
what it
the
was.
Savage Island.
Yeah.
But similar to the woman's sort of face being peeled by the sort of wood, this guy's neck is trapped by it, and it literally is a full-on decapitation of him, and it's so tight that it actually holds the rest of his body up with his feet hanging, like, so he's being hanged and decapitated at the same time. And how long it lingers on his leg twitching and the blood from the decapitation coming down his twitching body, I was like, this is clearly the moment that Gotham Video Nasty says.
Yeah, it has. And the one for me, the detail that gets me the most is because they have the whole idea of the skin being pinched and clenched and kind of squeezed. His neck skin is like rolled up because it's such a tight squeeze and such a massive gash. And it's just like the details that they just surround the actual death with is absolutely crazy. And even the thought, like, to be like your head, like it's kind of movie magic in a way, the way the physics actually work, but that makes it even more just kind of like gross and weird and strange. So
yeah, the body staying there doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but then also when she later discovers it, it's being like roped upside down so that his decapitated head is swinging back and forth. And also the nightmare sequence where she's kissing him in bed and he just starts bleeding from his eyes and mouth because she's making out with a decapitated head, and that's like the nightmare that she had. For me, this stretch of the movie was similarly to the sort of catacomb to the fetus eating. This was like the craziest stretch of this movie for me, is that death followed by the nightmare sequence followed by her discovering the body, because her discovering the body is the most sort of Italian horror coded thing in the movie, because she's drawn towards the run down, like the dusty crumbling movie theater, and just like finds her husband's hanging decapitated body in there.
And I like before too, when we go back to the dream right before that happens, where she kisses her man's decapitated head, and it's like the way that they do it is this like kind of slow zoom out to get more detail of his, like, when she unveils the covers, there's no body there. But before that, they start with him just being like a normal head. And then whatever they use, it must be some kind of like pump or something. They start to have his eyes even bleed and start to like cry blood before he starts kissing her. And it's a really cool added touch that feels, nightmarish, kind of, I don't know if Gothic would be the word, but it just feels very like something you'd see in, like, it's like religious, almost like Mary crying or something like that. It just, there's something weird about it that I really liked. And then after that, she starts screaming and like telling everybody about how he's missing and how she thinks he's dead and everything. And they do this really cool direction where they go more like handheld and a close-up, where they have the two women. One is being frantic and then the other is trying to calm her down. And it's still in this sense of like, you're being crazy after everything that has happened. And I liked that it was handheld. It gave an expression. He just went
for a really long walk without any clothes.
yeah.
That's all it is.
That's all it is.
Yeah, that stretches.
You know, and actually, even when they find him dead, they go, look, someone's out there killing him, but it's not like her dreams. It's not connected to her dreams. Who, you know, just because she saw him decapitated in her dream doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and then they do start doing the thing where they're just telling the audience right off the bat that this is turning into something physical based on her nightmares. When I think it's the character Eric, he goes into that attic or hatch or whatever, and he doesn't see anything, and then when he closes it, there's an actual blood stain there, so you know that it's seeping into the real world or whatever.
Yeah, the audience has been told that it's like manifesting physically.
Yeah,
it's not
and
just
everybody's
visions.
doomed essentially. Yeah.
Well, and the body's been moved, right?
Oh, that too, yes.
Right. Absolutely.
I love that stretch. I think that from once you hit that decapitation onwards, I think the rest of the movie is pretty solid, because there's a pitchforking that's like really technically well done, I thought.
It's very
the makeup effects are really impressive.
Yeah, because you see them they're cornered in a boathouse, I think, and then they're trying to climb out a window, and an unseen figure, you just see like the pitchfork being held by somebody obstructed by scenery. And then they get pitchfork from behind, and you see the tines come out and then retract, and it's really well done, really effective.
And then later on too, that woman that gets the pitchfork, they find her body on the beach, and then they add these details where like there's also holes in her face, implying the killer just started to go wild afterwards and just keep stabbing, which is just a really wild thought.
Crabs like walking over her and stuff,
kind of like
that.
Jaws, right? Like with the hand sticking out and the crabs or whatever.
That's right.
Yeah,
there's definitely some nasty detail to this. I did find, for me, after the deal with the husband, which I thought was the most sort of Italian horror coded, I think because of how elongated and supernatural that decapitation and hanging simultaneously is. Mm-hmm. Followed by the dream, followed by the uncovery of the body and how it connects to her nightmares that she's been experiencing. That for me was like the most Italian horror section. For me, it did slow down a little bit when it got into doing the sort of repetitive slasher structure of the, because I like everything to do with Kay. It was for her brother and Brooke where it did become we're not going to believe her despite every image she's saying and all of the paintings that she's done and every detail she's telling us. This woman is just crazy, to the point where at one point they literally fucking like drug her to sleep so that they can go and do their shit, which involves like burying, or like I think they like string up his corpse and shoot a flare because they're trying to get help, which is like a crazy way to try to get help.
Crazy thing to do. Yeah.
It is kind of cool though to have like the pre-nightmare thing, and there's like some of the rules without establishing the rules, or even having like the opposite scene, like when when Johnny Depp is trying to stay awake or Heather's trying to stay awake, one of the two. But it's the opposite this way, where she's so afraid of going to bed and no one believes her at this point yet in the story, so they're forcing her to go to sleep. There's just something there that's kind of interesting that it was pre-nightmare.
Yeah, well, because all the stuff I think with her is great. It was when Eric and Brooke were kind of left to their own devices, and the sequences I think are perfectly fine. Yeah, but it was like 10-minute sequences of Eric being like, David, David, and then her going out and being like, Eric, and walking around, the sort of island location, and then the unseen force that they aren't revealing yet is going to be this monster from the opening, going around and killing them in various ways. And again, the kills are perfectly competent. Like I like the one of him being dragged through the sort of beach area, and the fishing hook is pretty disturbing,
and because there's levels to it too, because like you have the hook wrapped around, but then he's got that thing where it's like the wiring is wrapped around him, so his hands are getting cut up and everything. And then there's like the dragging shot through the sand. And it kind of like just shows his body imprint and stuff like that.
And it was when they started extending it in the way that I recognized from slasher movies that I thought was funny, because this guy's clearly not making, like, he is obviously thinks he's making something that's more Lovecraftian and more Luton, and then him having to do the scene of like the girl trying to run away and like fishnets and then trapped by the glass window and being like I gotta get through the glass window, and obviously it has a great payoff of the monster stabbing her with the pitchfork pitchfork piercing her chest in a really, really impressive effect. It was just the structure of how those set pieces played out felt like not, I think, what this guy was intending for this movie to necessarily be. And it did feel like he was kind of going through the motions of what might have been a pretty solid across the board Friday the 13th sequence.
Yeah, totally. And I do like the little details of the violence. Like when I was talking about the hands being cut up from the wire, they do the same thing where when she's trying to get through the window, they do a brief cut to her hand trying to grasp the window panel, and it's like getting cut up by glass. So there's these little details, but I do agree that if you're going to try to, you know, have this more supernatural, just larger in scale, like something incomprehensive to us or something, then doing it like a Friday the 13th kill makes it a little silly, given that we know that this is also kind of a monster kind of entity in some way.
They should have brought that monster in. A little earlier.
I was just kind of hoping, I think they set a bar with that first death that I kind of hoped that the other deaths were just similarly sort of creative, or kind of had that impact, or kind of had that quality again of it feeling more supernatural and feeling like it's connected to the dreams, and then discovering the corpses, and, you know, more than just like, oh, she has been stabbed and she's on the beach and we found her corpse lying there. There was a little bit more creativity to the first one, but I do think that the finale is fairly strong when it does get to the parts where she's discovering the corpses and she's running around the island screaming. And I was curious how they were going to kind of wrap things up, and I did like the idea of her sort of retreating back into the cabin. And the slowness of this, I liked a little bit more, where she is like sweaty and delirious and wide-eyed and in a state of kind of paranoia, boarding herself up and getting to the point where she's like humorously like smoking and like reading a book and
drinking
has a coffee pot next to her. Yeah, she's like,
with
she's
a gun
trying to
next
stay.
To it too.
Yeah, she's trying to stay awake so that she doesn't have a nightmare and give the creature more power, which is obviously an idea that would become really prominent in the Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So it's cool to kind of see it done here before that. Where she's just like, if I fall asleep, I'm going to give this creature more ability to do what it does.
Doesn't Heather burn herself with a cig too? In Nightmare?
She does.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool too, because that's in here as well. Anyway.
I was like, same thing here. She does it here. So like, I do like that component of the movie. And then the creature is slowly breaking its way in as the storm is kind of raging outside. And the sequence just is a little bit more interestingly shot. I like Kay's like eyes being in a close up lit up, and her grabbing the knife and stabbing what appears to be, I think it's like the creepy guy.
She flare guns him. She shoots him with a flare gun down the street.
She flare guns the pilot who brought them in, who's functionally like the guy in every slasher movie who's like the gas station attendant. He's like, oh, you're gonna like this place, ma'am, or you know.
he's the groundskeeper in The Shining. Like he goes to help, and then all of a sudden he just gets axed or whatever.
So I couldn't tell if he's coming back to like try to save her, and she just fucking flares him in the gut.
That's what I took
and then
from
bursts
it.
him into flames instantly. Like the amount of flames that happen right away, you're like, oh no.
I mean, hey, you almost knocked a fridge on her, man. She was gonna do something to respond to that. So
and this like before too, there is a scene, because this is kind of where we get this big reveal of like that it is all a dream in a way, but I think it's definitely done in a way that's still doomed and inescapable, because it's kind of a future premonition. So I think it doesn't quite count, because you know that everything that happened is eventually going to. So you're like, okay, I can buy that, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of an escape clause for like it's just a dream ending. Like it does work because you do know it will happen. Yeah.
Right. And I think they set it up somewhere in the middle where she explains that like when she was a kid, she had dreams and someone in her family that was close to her died or something like that.
It was the cat.
The cat,
right.
She like when she was a kid, she got a cat for Christmas, and then the monster like put it in the freezer and killed it like 2 days later. And then the movie ends with her getting the cat. But as a little girl, because she's like dreamed this future, it's a little confusing because she's aware of the events of the dream, so she knows the cat's gonna die because it's already died. And it's a little convoluted, but I do enjoy it.
I like it because it reminded me of like when we watched The Psychic just a week or two ago, and it's like this inevitable doomed thing where it's like a fate that's just circular. It's kind of just inescapable. You're gonna go up to when you die by the monster, and then you're probably gonna wake up as a child again, and you're gonna replay it. Like it just feels kind of like a death loop. And I really like that.
Yeah, I saw someone compare the ending to like a Tales from the Crypt kind of ending, which I thought was kind of accurate. I liked the idea of this like cyclical, almost ironic moment of she spends this whole time thinking that she's an adult who's had nightmares since she was a kid about how she's going to die, and vividly seeing it and having to know it's coming, and then to circle back into being like everything that we've seen is her getting like the full vision of what that dream is and waking back up, and now having to live another 20 years knowing that this is going to happen to her again. That's what I like about it, versus when you do other examples of it where you go, oh, it was just a dream, and the movie you watch doesn't matter. That's not what this is. Thankfully, like this is just the perversity of having gone through that harrowing psychological and physical experience she just did, and being like having to be like, oh, this is coming for me still.
And I think the amount of like, because you have so many nightmares in this movie, it's kind of built around it. It doesn't have that same feeling too, where it just keeps repeating like, here's a scare, oh, it was just a dream. Here's a scare, oh, it was just a dream. It still feels all interconnected. Like reality and the dream world are all, it one in some sense. So I think it works well in that way.
And also, like, they do reveal the monster at the end. It's only in one shot for some reason, because I actually think it's really great. I think it's a cool design. It really does feel like they had, like, an animatronic head on a dummy or something. They could only do the one moment with it. But, like, it's really cool.
They did slime and rot it up.
Yeah,
in a cool way.
It's really gross. It's really cool. It's literally on screen for about 1 second. And I think it'd be... I don't know if it'd be a slightly different movie. I don't know if it'd be a better movie if they had the means to have that guy running around in the last 20 minutes of the film. I don't know.
There is something to be said, because it doesn't show. It just shows it kind of appear and then her like scream, right? So it is kind of cool that it has some type of an ambiguous thing where it's like it's still not attacking her. It almost feels like it's following her and making her have just all these tragic things happen to her around her all the time.
And I think it's also like,
they wanted to give you that 1 split second realization of, oh, it's real,
it's a real
and
thing.
Tangible.
Yeah, it is an actual monster that has been, and it's really funny to think back on the monster with a big fishing rod, like shooting up.
Just like got me a morning. Yeah, come on, boy.
But it is also cyclical in that, like, it's the reveal of the monster in the doorway surrounded by flames is in the opening scene dream sequence where she sees the monster in the doorway with the flames. And then the reveal that the flames from her dream in the beginning are her own mistakenly shooting the guy with the flare and burning the house down around her, which I really liked. If that monster wasn't there even at the end, I would have been disappointed. But like they showed just enough to make me happy that there's actually a creature, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, well, I think pivoting towards reductive rating round, this one was a solid to sort of maybe a little bit of a lighter 3 for me, but I am curious to go back to this one too, because I do think part of my experience was once again being sold on a 80s video nasty slasher movie, which this does in some specific moments deliver on, but by a wide margin, and clearly deliberately, if you listen to the director speak about it even for a second, was not what it was intended to be. And I think that knowing that and talking about it after, I feel a little bit a little bit stronger about the movie and some of the things that it does incredibly well, because this I do think works as like someone trying to get into that psychological subjective sort of premonition experience, and how just emotionally harrowing that is for you and the people around you who don't believe you. And again, I do feel this slots a lot closer into things like Carnival of Souls or Messiah of Evil or Let's Scare Jessica to Death. If you think of this movie in sort of those terms, the overall style and mood definitely points towards that. I do think that there were opportunities here for, I think, this guy to take that a little bit further. And I think that I would have appreciated that, maybe if some of the deaths didn't feel like they kind of had a bit of that repetitive primitive, sort of generic 80s slasher kind of structure to them and leaned more into that Italian horror fatalism, like that first death of the simultaneous decapitation and hanging, followed by a making out with a decapitated head nightmare sequence and discovering a corpse flying around a fucking rundown movie theater. Like, that section is so good. It unfortunately did set a higher bar for where I thought the other kills were going to go.
Yeah.
So I do think there was some opportunity there. I do think there was some opportunity to even incorporate some more of the Don't Look Now, the psychic, like getting into that cinematic deja vu quality with how we experience her paintings becoming reality, her dreams becoming reality. But I think it's a decent idea for a movie, and it's realized fairly well. And I do think it's competently made. I do think that the actors here actually have chemistry together, and there is actually, like, I think you might like hanging out with these characters a little bit more than you like hanging out with some of the characters in the last movie there. And I do think that eventually, after some of the characters are picked off one by one, the psychological slow burn quality of this movie does pay off, I think, in the finale, I think, decently well, when you get to the concept of her being like, I need to stay awake so that my dreams don't conjure a murderous, slimy creature that's going to slash or kill people. And then experiences that grimly cyclical, punishment of being like, this experience I just went through was so terrible, and it was all a dream that I am going to have to relive again in like 20 years. And I think that ending was quite cool. So I think knowing what this movie is again better on a rewatch, I'm gonna give it another shot. But for now, it's a light 3.
Nice. I'm at the 3 as well. I think there's better character work in this movie because it's more focused on it. But I do think that the atmosphere is probably better in the last. So there's kind of weaknesses and strengths in both of these films, but I do think that the director here, Cardone, has like a good sense of what he wants to do with the camera and with some actually very meaningful shots. Like, I did like that handheld when Kay is going kind of through that frantic moment after she kisses the decapitated head. There is a good sense of reality and dream world kind of blending. Very cool to see the pre-nightmare stuff, like the sig burn to stay awake or crossing the worlds and those kind of physical rules. I do think that there's a good orchestral score that actually sounds like decently expensive for what this film's budget probably was. I'm not entirely sure, but it's honestly pretty rich and pretty good. And good kills, like definitely the decapitation one is the highlight, and it's just unbelievably detailed and nasty and really gross. But I think that some of the creativity of the other ones, or at least the fishing one, when it comes to how he moves the camera around and drags the body and stuff, is pretty cool. I guess it's not as like creative when it comes to the pitchfork, but I do like the shots in place to get there once she gets through the kind of silliness of being tangled in the net. But I like the grab of the glass and the actual pitchfork shot is pretty unbelievable. And so there's some really good stuff in this still. So I would give it a 3. I would just think that there are moments, just like in the previous, that kind of run a little slow. But again, I think they're trying to build this atmosphere for the K character to just have room to kind of express herself and not be believed, and then it all slowly become doomed. So I think it works for sure. So 3.
I pretty much agree with both what you just said. I do wish that some of the elements had been pushed further in a maybe more Italian horror surrealist direction, or if failing that, bringing that creature out a little earlier than the last possible second, because I think it's cool. But what works here really works. It doesn't approach the level of something like Messiah of Evil or Let's Scare Jessica to Death or Carnival of Souls, but you can feel that ambition to those ends. And I think it's just like a successful little movie, and it does have atmosphere, like a really nice atmosphere. I don't think it touches the atmosphere of Anthropophagus. It's a different kind of atmosphere, mind you. But that
Trevor nails it every time. Anthropophagus. I'm gonna get it.
It's gonna turn out I've been saying it wrong the whole time. But yeah, no, I think it's solid, and
You impress us so much, Trevor, every time you come on here.
days practicing in the mirror. Yeah, no, I think it's just a solid little movie. It could have been better in these ways, but also it could have been so much worse. Just as a precursor, like a weird curiosity precursor to A Nightmare on Elm Street alone, you know, it's cool to see. So I would say like, you know, a 3, like a light 3 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? It's kind of surprising considering both of those franchises took off. How was this guy not like offered one of those franchise horror films? Because they were offering so many guys. Like some of those Friday the 13th movies were made by like a guy who made like one quasi-successful like 1980 horror movie, and it feels like this guy like practically auditioned for one and didn't get it.
I could see him doing an early like a, you know, somewhere between 2 and 3 Friday the 13th, and just having this kind of mood or atmosphere, and just pumping up a couple more kills, and it would have been great.
Yeah.
As soon as they were like, look, okay, Rennie Harlan won't do another one, so we need to get someone else. The guy who made the Slayer, let's see if what he's up to.
Yeah, pretty much.
He tried to make a Friday the 13th Part 3 into a psychological drama.
He would have had the budget to show the creature and show the makeup effects more.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up there, though, for the Slayer and for this week's episode. That was once again Anthropophagus, and the Slayer from 1980 and from 1982. Thanks so much, Trevor, for joining us and for bringing these films with you. This is usually the part of the show where if you've got anything to promote, to let us know what's going on in your life. And you've got Scare Waves 2 out now, right?
Oh, so yeah, I wrote a couple of books, middle grade books for Scholastic called Scare Waves. The second one, Scare Waves Beyond the Grave, just came out this August. They're kind of like 90s kids in a small town fighting like really gross, slimy monsters. I think they're pretty fun. There's
plenty of dads who listen to the show are definitely looking to get their children interested in horror stuff. So
so I think those are good for that. Otherwise, you know, you can just check me out on Instagram, where I talk about movies like The Slayer pretty frequently, and post art. My Instagram is Trevor Henderson, I think.
Yeah, I mean, all year you do it, but especially in October, it's worth noting Trevor is constantly recommending horror movies to people. Just like, I don't know where he finds the time. He just like, today I'm going to post about this one. And every once in a while, I'm like, well, watch list that one.
Oh yeah.
Yes, good. Yes, absolutely.
So if you're looking for more recommendations than just us, go straight to the source. We get some of ours from Trevor. But yeah, thanks so much, Trevor. For our listeners, we're going to be back in 1 week's time, where we are going to be wrapping up the Spooktober season with our Halloween episode, where we're going to be talking about the original Frankenstein, as well as the Hammer horror, The Curse of Frankenstein, because it has been long enough. It is time to talk about it. It's going to be back in the news because everyone's going to be watching the Guillermo del Toro remake on Netflix that's going to be coming out. So we thought we're going to dedicate an episode to our good pal Frankenstein Frankenstein's monster. And then in 2 weeks' time, it's going to be the end of Spooktober, straight into, as we always do every year, Noir-vember, where we are going to be joined by a very special guest who is incredibly knowledgeable about noir cinema history, who is going to be talking about some early, really, really economical B-noirs. Detour is the first one we're going to be talking about, and the other one is going to be The Seventh Victim.
Sweet.
And I'm very excited for that episode. So that is going to be our kickoff to the Noir-vember season, and we've already got our guest slate filled out for that month, and trust me, there is some crazy stuff. And you guys voted for one too. It looks like The Trial and Dark City is going to win as a pairing, which was pitched as like Kafka noir.
Cool.
So we are going to be having some fun once we wrap up the spooky season as well. So thanks so much, as always, for listening, and keep it sleazy.
Keep it sleazy. Keep it spooky.